Disabled people are underprivileged in the world today. Imagine visiting Ghana and seeing a 5-year-old girl dressed in rags with a heavy chain secured to a nearby tree clamped around her legs. This was her fate because her family believed that she was possessed by evil spirits, which is commonly associated with disabilities in many parts of the world. There are disabled people all over the world, and the number of disabled people has risen tremendously. According to Uwu Bazanyezi from the World Bank, 15% of the world's population experience some form of disability. Now, 15% may not seem like a huge number, but in reality, 15% of the population is roughly 1.1 billion people. And that would be equated to everybody in the United States having disability times 3.5. So 3.5 United States, everybody has disabilities. That's a lot of people. To put that in perspective, the 1.1 billion people with those disabilities have a less likely chance to get a job compared to a person who does not have disabilities. According to the World Health Organization, or WHO for short, global data shows that employment rates are lower for disabled men, 53%, and disabled women, 20%, than those for non-disabled men, 65%, and non-disabled women, 30%. And the lack of stable healthcare and sometimes the absence of healthcare is a serious issue for disabled people. According to WHO, disabled people are 4 times more likely to report being treated badly and nearly 3 times more likely to be denied healthcare. This number is staggering and details that healthcare for people in need is oftentimes not met or not given. Today I'll be explaining to you why it is vital that disabled people be chosen over the other marginalized groups I presented to you today. First, I have the aspect of the number of disabled people in the world. 1.1 billion people, like I said, have disabilities in the world, which is also 15%. While that's a lot, it encompasses every single disability from depression to ALS. While those are both very dangerous, they're on opposite sides of the spectrum. Among those people, many suffer from an invisible disability. According to Lisa Wagner on Inclusivity Maker, the concept of an invisible disability takes its name from the forms of disabilities that are not apparent but impact the quality of life. These include such disabilities as deafness or schizophrenia. They're not physically impairing, but they impact the quality of life of the people who have them. And they are not accounting for all 1.1 billion people, obviously, but they do account for a lot. There are also people who are in wheelchairs, who need crutches, who have physical impairments. And people with an invisible disability or physically altering disability are arguably one of the most underappreciated and underrepresented groups in the world. According to the Guardian News article by Shanta Rao, laws in dozens of countries prevent people with disabilities from deciding whom to marry, where to own a home, and what medical treatment they prefer. With 1.1 billion people on the earth suffering from disabilities, the outreach and representation needs to be higher, and these countries need to be able to allow people to choose who to marry, where to live, and what medical treatment they should get. Since you know there's a big number of people in the world with disabilities, now I'll shift my attention to my next point, which is employment rates and possibilities of jobs for people with disabilities. Disabilities in the workplace are not accepted by many employers. Common disabilities that are considered cognitive impairments include Down syndrome, autism, and many more. According to WebAIM.org, cognitive disability is a nebulous term describing a person who has greater difficulty with mental tasks than the average person. Many employers tend to not hire people with disabilities because they stereotype that individual as not being able to complete the same tasks as people who do not have cognitive impairments or a normal person, as many people would say. For example, according to the National Center for Promotion of Employment of Disabled People, out of the 70 million people in disabilities in India with disabilities, only 100,000 have succeeded in having a job. That is literally 0.14% of people in India with disabilities who have a job. And not to mention the United States as well. 35% of working age people with disabilities are working, while 78% of those working age people without disabilities are working. That's a 43% difference from disabilities and then non-disabilities. Is it legal to reject someone from a job due to disabilities though? There is a law that bans employers from rejecting those with disabilities. That is the Americans with Disabilities Act. But companies will still reject those who are disabled without directly saying they are rejected due to disabilities. So that would be something like if the job requires you to run a machine, use your arms and legs, but somebody has a disability where they cannot move their arms or legs, they technically are able to reject them from that job, but they cannot just specifically say if they're able to do the job, they can't just say you can't do it because you have Down syndrome, you can't do it because you have autism. There are certain levels, and that act helps people with disabilities be able to get jobs. And lastly, the lack of reasonable health care is a big aspect in why disabled people are underappreciated in the world. Healthcare companies, specifically in America, are not specifically dedicated to helping the people with disabilities when they should be focused more on them than the average person. According to the World Health Organization article about disability and health, affordability of health services and transportation are two main reasons why people with disabilities do not receive much needed health care in low-income countries. Just over half of people with disabilities are unable to afford health care compared to about a third without disabilities. That is, when put in perspective, the people with disabilities should be able to get more likely get a chance to have health care and Medicare compared to those without disabilities because of the price and the energy and money that goes into taking care of a disabled person. And for example, my sister has disabilities and she needs lots of equipment, and just last year we spent almost $30,000 just on her equipment and just what she needs to have a normal life, as many people would call it. And so healthcare helps out with that, and the fact that a lot of disabled people are not able to receive healthcare or have a lack of healthcare shows that they need to be sought out more and represented more. And there's areas in the world such as, or in the United States, such as Wyoming, New Mexico, that have really low coverage, and they are not very effective compared to California and New York, which are more populated and they have better healthcare systems set up. And that was from COVIDTreeDirect.com. And then finally, according to World Health Organization, people with disabilities were more than twice as likely to report finding healthcare provider skills inadequate to meet their needs, 4 times more likely to be reported to be treated badly, and nearly 3 times more likely to be reported denying care. So those numbers and the surveys that were taken show that the healthcare provider is not doing a good enough job making sure that disabled people are taken care of. And in the end, disabled people, in not just the United States but in the rest of the world, are severely treated incorrectly, ranging from not having the same abilities as other people to being denied healthcare. Disabled people are not supported and made a priority like they should be. And disabled people are among the most marginalized in the world today.